Hello, it's Peter from Mango, and this is Compliance Conversations, and today we've got Nicholas Graham from SRM in South Africa, we've got Craig from the marketing department in Mango, and we're going to be talking about performance evaluations and resourcing. The standards require us to do these things, but when it comes to really seeing it in a company, quite often it's not done, or done poorly, or they don't give resource or any support or training to staff. So Nicholas, tell us what happens in South Africa and what are you finding out over there?
I think when we talk resourcing, a lot of people just focus on the human component of that. So there's a lot more to resourcing a management system than just deploying people. You've got your infrastructure, you've got finance, you've got budget, and I think sometimes it's a little bit narrow-minded about just focusing on the human component. What we found to be effective is where a performance review is facilitated by both the employee and the employer. And what I mean by that is, on a monthly basis, the employee should evaluate their own performance against a set metric. And then, as an example, quarterly, the manager will sit down and review the employee's performance and how they've evaluated themselves.
I understand that, and that's probably the intent of the standard, and it's actually good practice. But I think production pressures, business pressures get in the way. 20 years ago when I was a quality manager, I had to do performance reviews of my staff. Yeah. Data was never available, it was locked in cabinets, it was like that, and it was like this chore. It became a chore because there was no systems, no one bought into it. Even the employees didn't see the point of it because it didn't really have an outcome. There was nothing that you could say, if we do this, this is what's going to happen. And Craig, you've audited back in those days and have worked for companies. Have you seen any changes? You know, is it just lip service? Or?
Well, it is lip service. It's a tick and flick. You know, the performance reviews coming up, tick a few boxes, job done, file that in the employee's file, and that's it. It's got to be like Nick says. It's a two-way street. And I think it's a continuous thing. It's an everyday review. Yeah. Yes, there can be a formal one every quarter, maybe with the manager, but it's an everyday thing. You should be talking with your staff, being out on the shop floor with your staff, and having a two-way conversation.
You see, in my mind, what underpins any of these things is within the organisations, we're trying to build a positive culture. And you know, from 45,000, we have to create a positive OSH culture within the organisation. And things such as trust, communication, participation, which are all requirements of the standard, underpin the creation of that type of a culture. So if we can get that thing right, where there's consultation, there's participation, it's collaborative, we're doing it regularly, the employees know that they can trust management, we're going to start creating the cultures that we so eagerly desire within the organisations, which are going to produce the type of fruit that we're looking for.
I think another thing is that people over-engineer it. Yes, there's the perfect 360 where you go through that process, but like all processes, they're prone to failure, and of course once it fails once, then the staff don't buy in. So I think organisations really have to think, how can we do this simply? In our office, we don't do a performance review at all. We have some meetings where we talk about how the organisation is going, but if I want to know how a developer is working, I'll go over and sit down and have a chat. We have lunches with them, we ask them how they're going, are there any problems? We have certain meetings that look at everything as a collective, but from there will be outputs. So we don't actually do a performance review, and we made a decision not to do them because we knew that management would let it down every time.
To piggyback off that, I think a lot of people adopt a more formalised or structured approach that you've described that you don't do in order to placate auditors rather than just get the value out of it.
That's the key thing. I think they're just doing this formal system just so that the auditors will sign them off to say that they've passed the standard. But that's not necessarily true.
But one part of a company which I think needs to be formalised in that around resourcing is the quality manager, the health and safety of the person, more for the smaller organisations. And the job has been, they've had a consultant come in and write the system. Yeah. And then they give it to Mary at reception. Mary has no training in the standard, and she's just an administrator, but doesn't know the working parts and how it all does. That, I think, is wrong. I think auditors need to make sure that when they go and audit a company, that they can demonstrate that the person who's looking after the system is trained appropriately.
Absolutely.
And that should be like, if you don't do that, non-conformance, because otherwise it's always going to be pushed down as this add-on task, and suddenly you know it feels like an add-on task. And if the quality of that person drops, then good thing is the quality auditor can drop as well, because they don't need to be as smart as what they used to be.
That could draw us into a deeper discussion on competency and awareness within organisations, as regularly they identify what the skill set is and then train them, but don't assess the effectiveness of training. But I'm sure it's another discussion.
So anyway, thank you, Nicholas. Always good to see what a South African point of view is. To you guys, keep it simple. Use your tools that you've got, train your quality or health and safety or compliance person, put some money into their training. So thank you guys, and until the next video, cheers.